All right, we'll stay with the story and speak to DA spokesperson Karabo Khakhau. Karabo, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for your patience. Let's just start with some of the reaction, right, to the events of today. You have Makwe Masilela, for example, an economist, saying that it's not good at all. Then you have Davi Ruud saying it's the first time that the DA has shown a backbone in the government of national unity. You have Daniel Silk, a political economist, on social media saying that there's something seriously wrong when a GNU postpones a national budget with no warning, thereby affecting investor sentiment and undermining citizens' confidence in the administration. The postponement is an embarrassment for the government of national unity, and it will strain the GNU cohesion further at a time when both global and domestic factors are threatening economic growth. How should South Africans be viewing this moment?
Hi to yourself, hi to your viewers, and thank you for having me. South Africans should look at this in twofold. One, they must be celebrating because this is a victory for them. We were able to avert a 2% VAT increase, which would have meant that if they have that increase, then the cost that they have to bear to pay for food, to pay for transport, and to pay for basic essentials would have gone up. When we know that South Africans are already battling to put food on the table, to get to work with fares that are favorable to what they can afford, and to essentially just get any basic essentials. So this is a win for South Africans, and they should see it as that. But the second thing that South Africans must also see here is that the ANC is arrogant, that they are yet to come to terms with the fact that they are a 39% party that is not alone in government, not in cabinet, and not in parliament. So in their attempts to try to bulldoze or bully people into decisions that are not in the best interest of South Africans, which a VAT increase is certainly not. They did not imagine that they will wake up to the scare of them having to be held accountable for budgets that do not meet the needs of South Africans. So two things. We're glad that they're having a humbling moment for themselves so that we can go back to recreate a budget that speaks to the needs of South Africans, which is economic growth, job creation, and making sure that we deal with our finances in a way that does not put South Africans at the direct responsibility via taxes of bailing out the state that has mismanaged its finances in the past. So, two, that it's a victory for them, that they don't have to pay more than they are already struggling to pay for.
Karabo, you say we have ensured. Who are you referring to?
The Democratic Alliance. Okay. The Democratic Alliance have ensured and has fought hard, and it's a victory that we take on behalf of South Africans.
There we go. And your statement says that you've averted that 2%, right? That's your heading there. And when you listen to the sitting in Parliament, for example, you do then have the Patriotic Alliance that says that we, as a collective, the GNU, and I'm quoting their leader, their Gayton McKenzie, saying this is a collective decision. He says we. Then you've got Patricia de Lille, who's with the Good Party, saying that the DA must not play politics. It was everyone's agreement that you postpone. Then you've got the IFP saying the same thing as well. So what exactly is going on? Is the DA trying to claim easy victory, or were you the only ones that were against this?
We certainly led the pack. Gayton McKenzie, Patricia de Lille, and the IFP must not play catch-up populism at the expense of the truth of what is at stake here for South Africans. In all honesty, if the DA did not make the noise that it made and threatened, which we ended up being able to succeed on, then none of those small parties who are pretty much backup artists for the ANC and the GNU in most instances in cases like this, they wouldn't have actually been opposed to this as fundamentally and as vehemently as the Democratic Alliance was.
Karabo, so the pardon me for coming in there. Who are the backup artists?
So every small political parties within the GNU who make up one seat and smaller parties have shown themselves in decisions in the past to be in favor of the ANC's decisions and rubber stamping them. And so I'm boldly saying here, Osbongiwe, that if the Democratic Alliance didn't lead out from the onset to be the ones to set out the objection of the 2% VAT increase, perhaps we wouldn't have seen the other political parties as aggrieved as they are. And which is why even in the communication in the media right now, you would see that the leader of this conversation is the DA, because the leader of the fight of a 2% VAT increase is the Democratic Alliance. So that is what must be true. So even though Cabinet agreed as a whole team, it agreed because the initiator of the strike, let's call it that, a protest, was the Democratic Alliance.
So it sounds to me, Karabo, though, like, and I don't know, some South Africans are also viewing it the same, right? That politics won at the end of the day. One was showing that we've got a muscle stronger than you. Are there South Africans who think like that, correct?
I can see the fairness in part of that worry. And which is why, as the Democratic Alliance, we've made calls in the past to the ANC for them to realize that when making such serious decisions that impact the lives of South Africans, they need to be cognizant of such perceptions that exist in the public. Therefore, they need to consult their JNU partners, and when objections to their decisions make sense, which the DA's objection to a 2% VAT increase does, they need to heed the sense there and be able to follow it. But what is true here is that politics didn't win, because if politics won, then politicians would have won the game, the politicians being the leader, the ANC. The people who won here today are the South African Republic, who have been for years crying to say they want jobs, they want a growing economy, that they can't afford food, they can't afford the cost of transport to go anywhere, that they can't afford basic essentials, and that they're calling on government to restructure its fiscal plan to address these issues. And the outcome that we have today is an outcome that is a direct response to the cries of South Africans and their calls.
You do have others, though, who are saying that post today, they are more convinced now more than ever that the GNU has collapsed. You do have some who are saying that, right? And then you do have others who are saying, what happens to the cohesion of the government of national unity if then, for example, the Democratic Alliance is going to say that all the other parties are simply just echo chambers of the ANC and backing what the ANC is saying, and then you have the Democratic Alliance saying the one thing, and then you've got the ANC saying another. So what exactly is going on here when it comes to cohesion, and can you be able to put these aside and make sure that come the 12th of March there's a budget that will be tabled?
We can. The Democratic Alliance has always been prepared to show up maturely for the best interests of South Africans in these conversations. The DA also has a deputy minister in the finance ministry, and it is about time that Minister Godongwana and his team realizes that they are not the only thought leader, that they're not the only leaders of thinking around the fiscal position of the country, and that the DA is also in the room and take our solutions seriously. At the heart of our contestation here is making sure that we have a budget that meets the needs of South Africans without taxing South Africans further and putting a greater burden than that which already exists on their shoulders and in their pockets, one. But two, to make sure that we have a good consolidation of our debt recon altogether in a way that is sustainable and aligned to the ultimate goal, which is having opportunities that exist for economic growth and ultimately job creation. That is that which we want, and we are hoping in all earnesty on behalf of South Africans who beg that at least we hope today some sense of sense actually will knock the heads of ANC leaders to understand this, because this is what is at stake when politicians choose to play politics at the expense of South Africans instead of heeding sensible recommendations that are clearly something that could easily be taken as something that is a pro-poor, a pro-middle class strategy here. Because the bottom line here, the people who are feeling the brunt here are not the rich South Africans ordinarily. It is our middle class and poor South Africans, who majority of them are just Black people. And so we can't have a situation where a democratic government, 30 years post its dispensation, is being regressive in its thinking. We can't have that.
All right, a sense of sense, you say, Karabo. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Appreciate it. That was the DA spokesperson, Karabo Khakhau.